Well, hello, and welcome to Chapter 5 of Producing Animation. This chapter is entitled The Development Process, and it walks us through what you're going to become very familiar with, and that is the various stages of a production when we try and get things up and going and develop. We're going to start with the development process overview. In this, we have a creative foundation for our project is solidified through visual and written materials. And as you'll find out soon, there are no hard and fast rules. There are general guidelines, but nothing that's definitive. The approach is dictated by property, its source, and the individuals attached, for example, the creator, the seller, and the buyer. Assembling a strong development team assures better quality and faster results. And even with a great presentation team, that's no assurance that you're going to be able to find financing. The whole goal is to find someone with enough money and belief in the project to be able to fund it. On page 97, you'll see the role of producer during development. These are the different stages one goes through. So we'll start with number 1. As early as possible, you would want this individual involved. Number 2, how a project is shaped and launched is entirely dependent on the producer. Number 3, the process is influenced by story, content, intended budget, and schedule. The producer must ensure that the project is suitable for animation. 5, it collaborates with the writer to flesh out and lock the story prior to production. Lock simply meaning what it says. It's at that point we're not going to do any changes until we have to, or there's a change of course, or something like that. Number 6, partner with director and artists to establish appropriate style and quality of animation. Obviously, many animated features have different looks or different styles, and they would want to take that into consideration because that certainly has an impact on the budget. Number 7, oversees writing and visual departments. Number 8, he keeps executive/buyer confident and satisfied in the project. Number 9, assess strengths and weaknesses of the project. Number 10, works with creator to interview candidates for production team. Number 11, attach a potential A-list talent. Attach simply means get them to sign on. And number 12, locate and hire talent in general. Number 13, non-crucial talent should be hired only for specific services. This prevents weak talent from being attached to the project, which could later be a deterrent when trying to get financed. Number 14, assess how easy or difficult potential talent is to work with. For example, some Hollywood talent are known to be very difficult. They may do good work, but they may be very difficult to work with. And you have to look at the personalities of the directors and the performers to see how everything's going to mesh, hopefully. Number 13, non-crucial talent should be hired only for specific services. This prevents weak talent from being attached to the project, which could deter being financed at a later point. Number 14, assess how easy or difficult potential talent is to work with. Sometimes a talent may be a great box office draw, but may be very difficult to work with, and you always want to look at how compatible they might be with the people you have on your crew. Number 15, review bios, portfolios, and demos with the director for hiring appropriate potential talent. Director should be involved. Number 16, producer generates a schedule based on key milestones as a project evolves from premise to final draft. Number 17, writer receives creative notes from the producer, director, seller, and creative executives at every stage of the scripting process. Hopefully you'll remember that word notes. Those basically mean revisions, changes, additions, anything that's different from what is on the written page or the written script. Number 18, the script must meet project's creative objectives from narrative perspective and character development. Number 19, the producer must pace development appropriately, allowing creative to thrive and meet long-term objectives. Strict time deadlines can hinder creative process, obviously. Number 20, producer must balance things to assure enough time and money to achieve artistic goals. And number 21, must use intuition to know when to push and when to chill. Number 22, responsible for keeping morale high and enthusiasm high. Number 23, artists hate working for producers with assembly line approaches to artistic endeavors. And 24, one often successful approach is to help visualize the project by taking CGI characters and key locations into lighting and surfacing tests. A project's adaptability to adapt to multiple mediums, like games or mobiles or apps, in today's transmedia marketplace has a much stronger chance of succeeding. Remember, multiple platform adaptability means a greater offset of the risk. You're more likely to make a profit the more ways you can sell it. You're going to be hearing about a showrunner. Now, you may think a showrunner sounds like an errand boy or someone that runs and gets coffee for people, but actually the showrunner is the man who runs the show, as you'll see. He is a creative visionary on TV projects, usually an executive producer. The main responsibility is to oversee the storytelling process and the show's visual development. If the concept is created by a writer, that writer is often named the executive producer. Now we're going to talk about the confidentiality of material. Obviously, if word gets out that a project is being done to competitors, in many cases the competitors can jump the gun or can somehow cause problems that would cost millions and millions of dollars. So very often you're going to be asked to sign a non-disclosure and non-compete agreement. There's the non-compete, non-disclosure. The non-disclosure means you don't tell anyone about the project. Very often projects are given fake names to throw people off what the real story is. And a non-compete simply means should you decide to go work for someone else, or rather should you decide to quit the production or you get fired, you cannot put yourself in the position of competition against it. These are standard forms that you're asked to sign. And there is an example. Confidentiality of material. The producer must establish ground rules for safeguarding the project from piracy. He applies to script, all forms of artwork, software, and intellectual development. It applies to all these things. It must be adhered to from the concept through final delivery. Scripts should be watermarked so they can tell who's had them, who's handled them. If they hand them to somebody else, they'll know that they were given out. Digital burn-in identifiers on all outputs so they can tell who had it originally or where a leak came from. Log in or out of all materials to track possession and distribution of all materials. And confidentiality agreements, NDA, non-disclosure agreements, etc., are usually signed. The writing process. Key to a successful project is a great script. If the story doesn't work and the characters are not compelling, even with beautiful and complex animation, great art direction, etc., in animation, there are several ways to approach scripting, depending on the genre, form, and the length of the project. Most famous cartoon shorts, for example, Bugs Bunny or any cartoon character you might recognize, originally went from outline to a storyboard to final production. Gags were created and pitched by gag men, writers, and directors. This technique is still popular for short-form projects. In longer formats, with script in hand, brainstorming sessions allow for gags and story problem solving. The goal is best writing, best storyboard for the creation of the best script possible. Now, the Project Bible, you'll see one of these shortly. It is actually a book that outlines the written concept that sets up all the key elements for a project or a series. It describes the project or series as a whole. It defines the main characters and their relationships. It defines the tone of the show. It defines the target audience. It includes visuals to help enhance storytelling. It's used as a tool for the writing team to assure consistency. It's used by a director or casting director in voice talent casting. And it's used by artists to help better understand how characters and plot are intertwined. Page 104, Stages of a Script. Establish and set up characters, the world or universe. As you are aware, for example, with Marvel comic productions, they have their own universe established where you can know that this character is living at the same time as this other character, and they may actually have some interactivity. Character conflicts and character resolution. Page 104, the premise. A premise is a paragraph or two outlining the main story concept. It includes main characters, basic conflict, any complications, and how they are resolved. Page 104, outline, long and short form. For features, TV specials, direct to DVD. Now this is the outline, describes the key plots, the points of the story. It's broken down into traditional 3-act story structure. Chronologically lists all significant emotion and action moments in each scene within each script, within each act. It's a story beat board, the storyboard of key moments of all the plot points to inspire writing and artistic teams. And it enables crew to keep track with the creative goals scene by scene. Page 104, the treatment, long and short form for features, TV specials, and direct-to-DVD. This is expansion of the outline. 20 to 25 page document are broken down into 3-act story structure, including some dialogue. Page 104, first draft script. This fleshes out the story arcs. It adds dialogue and action. It's submitted to the director, producer, and the buyer or buyer executives for notes. Half-hour script is usually about 25 to 35 pages, and a feature script is about 80 to 110 pages. And you should remember this. Page 105, second, third, and even fourth draft script. Each draft incorporates new notes, revisions, corrections, suggestions, demands given. Story editors may be responsible for incorporating notes. Often revisions will be underway on one section with the production underway on another. And new writers may be introduced, often with specialties like punch-up comedy, gags, emotional deepening, and action, etc. Just a personal note, I know in a screenplay that I was working on, we were up to script number 19, which is not that unusual. Page 105, continued. Polishing phase. These are when final touches are completed. The structure is solid by this phase and rarely altered. The content sometimes is clarified, dialogue is often improved, and a new writer may be brought in for final dialogue pass. Feature film script. It's never locked when the pre-production begins. That means it's never set down, etched in stone. It is still very malleable and can be changed and is changed up until the point at which someone decides the script is locked. And from that point on, it's a big deal to go in and make changes. The story is often under continuous development even during production. Often scripting process runs concurrent with storyboarding process. Using treatment or outline, the writer meets with the director, the head of story, storyboard artists to rough out the story and characters. After these meetings, a draft of the screenplay is made, illustrating sequences based on written material. The creative team meets again to review the script, storyboards or animatic, as you can see below, and come up with more story improvements. With notes implemented, the board is pitched to the director, the producer, and the writer. Based on the producer and director's decision, artwork and script are revised as necessary. And the process continues until everyone is satisfied and considers sequences ready for production. An animatic is primarily storyboard-style art, sometimes utilizing storyboard panels, sometimes broken down with separate layered elements crudely animated. A storymatic is literally storyboard panels synced with an audio. No layered pieces of art. It's simply one piece of artwork replacing another. And then a swipe-o-matic is a lower form of an animatic, utilizing swiped or non-licensed copyrighted materials utilized to demonstrate actions or design or animation, etc. For example, you may have a scene that's reminiscent or it's similar to a scene that exists in another movie. Sometimes you use that movie in the scene just to get across the concept or the idea or the pacing or the coloring or so on. So that's what a swipe-o-matic is aptly named. Page 106, production scripts. Once production is underway, the greenlit script goes through several phases. It's constantly updated throughout production, based on online and scene revisions and deletions. All revisions must be tracked through production pipeline, and all must be informed at all times. That's very important to keep everybody aware of everything that's going on all the time. In fact, frequent meetings are used to do that, just to get across the status of the project. Page 106, a numbered script. Each line of dialogue is numbered for reference by the actor, the editor, or the director during voice recording sessions. So the guy, for example, the audio engineer may feel like the recording may have been a little funny or somebody hiccuped or something on take number 42, so they look at 42, and that's when the actor said a specific line. All description and scene information is at the left of the page. Page 106, recording script or engineer script. Each line of dialogue is numbered for reference, as we just mentioned. It's similar to a numbered script, but excluding all the reference to action descriptions. For example, it won't say he's climbing out of the water when he does this or whatever it is. It's just the lines themselves. Page 106, a conformed script. Once the animatic is locked for production, the script is updated and conformed to match it precisely. All changes, revisions, etc. are included in the conformed script. Automatic dialogue replacement, ADR script. This is used during post-production only. It shows additional or replacement dialogue only. It contains lines of dialogue with corresponding line numbers. Lines are numbered with the reference time code. This is very often used, for example, if you're filming outside and there's noise, distraction, machine noise, who knows what. You can have the actors say their lines over again on a soundstage or in a recording studio, more accurately, and then they will be synced up with the old existing line. That's a pretty common practice. Page 107, final as-aired release script. Conformed to precisely match the final as-aired release version, and it needed for close-up captioning for foreign language dubbing, which very often happens. Page 7, script clearances. Legal permission must be obtained for the details of the script. Under attorney guidance, names and locations of characters must be cleared. You can't just use any name, and you can't use the name of the people who you're talking about in your script without their permission in general, unless they're newsworthy. Final script as a whole requires clearance. Boy, I can't stress this enough. Otherwise, you can get in some major legal troubles. Page 104, script lengths. General rule of thumb, 1 page of script equals 1 minute on screen. So if you've got a 60-page script, you've got an hour-long production. That's roughly. A half-hour script is roughly 22 to 25 minutes. The reason for this is you have to allow for TV commercials. Generally, 25 to 35 pages will do 30 minutes worth of programming once you include the 6 to 8 minutes of commercials that run. For a feature script, that's about 80 minutes, 80 to 100 pages. Generally, comedies, for some reason, end up hovering somewhere around the 73 to 75 minute mark. It's rare that comedies last longer than that. It varies depending on the dialogue or whether it's dialogue heavy or action driven. The arc or story definition. You'll hear this a lot. The chronological construction of a plot in a novel or story. Typically, a narrative arc looks something like a pyramid made of the following components. Number 1, exposition, the introduction of the story in which characters are introduced, the setting is revealed. Number 2, rising action. Those are a series of events that complicate matters for the protagonist, creating a rise in the story's suspense or tension. The climax, the point of greatest tension in the story and the turning point in the narrative arc from rising action to falling action. Now falling action. After the climax, the unfolding of events in a story's plot and the release of tension leading toward this resolution. And finally, the resolution. That's the end of the story, typically, in which problems of the story and the protagonist are resolved. Page 107, visual development. 2 main visual elements necessary to set up the world or universe of an animated project are characters and location. Depending on production, it may require line and color drawings, conceptual paintings, rough CG models, etc., required to clearly bring the project to life. During the conceptual stage, the style of a show is established, whether it's cartoony, realistic, stylized, or combination. If no visual starting point exists, artists will be employed to design key characters, locations, and styles. As a development progresses, style begins to take form, becoming more distinct and refined. And final sign-off of characters, locations, and props is crucial to a smooth transition from development onto production. It is more cost-effective to do exploration early in the process. Otherwise, last-minute revisions are costly and may impact delivery. Once characters, locations, and props are considered final and handed off to animation, they are considered locked items, no longer open to major revisions. Characters, likenesses, etc. should be run past legal for clearance at this stage. This is a concept that actually is from the book, and you may go to this www.rainmaker.com.luna/Luna, and you can see moving examples of this. I would welcome you to do that. So when you get back to your place, pull out your book and take a look at this website. These are some examples from the textbook that show Luna character development. This is for a project obviously called Luna, and obviously it's about insects. Anyway, there's a very nice character design featured there on page 110 in the book. Page 111, more, this is not characters, but rather layouts and handsomely done work. It's pretty loose, but it's quite handsome. Page 108, Conclusion. Utilizing the script, Bible, conceptual artwork, etc., producer analyzes the complexity and the cost needs to create production plan, along with input from the key creative and production executives. The production plan, along with collateral elements like script and art and so on, are used to get a green light for the production. After being green lighted and all elements signed off, the script goes into next phases of process, pre-production, which is discussed more in Chapter 8. Green lighting, definition. A term denoting the go-ahead for a film to be made, contrasted to being red-lighted, which shouldn't be confused with green screening. Green-lighted means the project is approved, funded, or financed. And that concludes Chapter 5, the development process.